Mishlei 12:4 states that a woman of valor is her husband's crown, but one who acts shamefully is like rottenness in his bones. And the Malbim, on his commentary on Mishlei, states that the good wife not only integrally strengthens her husband, but like a crown becomes a symbol of pride and conscious dignity for her husband. Because of her, his social status is enhanced. However, the bad wife not only fails to be a source of pride to her husband, but inherently he feels her as bone of his bones, as part of himself, and thus experiences a corruption and a debilitating of his own being. This verse in Mishlei is something that we've seen played out time and time again in our own life experiences. We see examples of the women of valor, and though in this generation the quantity of the quality of women of valor seems to be diminishing, it is a great comfort to know that we always have the matriarchs to look back to as to what the proper example is when it comes to portraying this woman of valor. We see HaShem applauding them over and over again, and he records their stories in the Torah for us to look and draw upon their wisdom. Now, on the flip side, we see this rise in the latter description, the woman who is a rot to her husband's bones. And we see it growing more and more in our generation. And it often, you can tell right away, it comes from the wife who just seems to throw temper tantrums, has a very poor disposition, seems to want to acquire many things, and oftentimes is never satisfied with what she has, and often is looking to her neighbor. And in this way, she begins to really antagonize her husband and pushes him. So then the question becomes, who would choose such a wife? But I think to answer that, we will have to really address the problem as opposed to the symptoms. And I know in this, generation, I think everything is becoming kind of like the healthcare system, which is quite broken, in which we tend to treat symptoms as opposed to the root of the problem. So we keep masking it by doing all kinds of crazy things and behaviors. And of course, because no one ever confronts them on these things, they tend to just push it away. And of course, this behavior just grows and grows and grows. And that silent voice, which kind of, is what anchors you, what keeps your feet on solid ground, we tend to just push it away and push it away and push it away. And we push it away so far that it's almost impossible to find it anymore. And we tend to lose ourselves in that journey. So now, let's think about this. If a man already has a predisposition to have this happen while he's out there trying to make a living, what chance will he have if the wife, who is supposed to steer him back, is also so lost? I had mentioned in the beginning of this series this statement of the woman given over her sovereignty and her power. And you may be wondering, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? What do you mean giving over sovereignty and power? But this giving over, this transfer of authority happens to the majority of us. And in fact, both men and women suffer from some form or have gone through this at some point. And if you've not done the work to work on your character traits, you may never even know that this exchange is happening on a daily basis. And what I mean by this is that at some point in your life, whether it was through your parents or a close relatives, whether it happened as a child or later on as an adult, whether it was a teacher or a mentor or someone you trusted as a friend, at some point there was some kind of statement in which it could have been any statement. We'll say you're stupid, you're worthless, you're not good enough, and we take that and we start to try to fight against it, because I think when we initially hear such a statement, we go into this state of shock where we start to evaluate ourselves against this statement. But what ends up happening is it becomes this recording. And the earlier this statement was said to you in your life, then it becomes this part of you. And it becomes so much a part of you that as you go through life, it almost seems as everything is reinforcing this statement. And when that happens, it becomes your identity. So then everything becomes this root, and it becomes the root of deficiency, right? We can no longer see ourselves as worthy of being accepted as we are, because we have told ourselves over and over again that if I showed you who I really was, you may not like that person. Because many times we don't like that person, so how can you like that person? So we begin to form this persona of the person we want to be. And of course, for those of you who have done the hard work, you know this becomes a very daunting rat wheel, because you never really achieve that status that you have in your mind. And of course, whenever you see something better, that line, that goal that you've set has now moved. So we're constantly chasing after an illusion that in truth no one has attained. No one has attained this this level. We're always learning, we're always growing, but it's very hard to grow against the narrative that you are not enough. And so we begin to acquire and to pursue in the hopes that one day we will be that person. So what ends up happening? So we always want to compete with our neighbors, even within ourselves, within spouses, because we are constantly under the barrage that I'm not enough. I'm not enough. They won't like me just as I am. So I have to do all that I can to be more. But we must be careful, because our thoughts become words, and our words become actions, and our actions become habits, and our habits become our legacy. You can follow this series, A Woman's Worth by Devorah Esther, on YouTube at Gimel Dalet 777. Click subscribe to be notified. If you've enjoyed this video or know someone who would, please share it. Siku limitzvot.